Hey guys, welcome to Wrestling Days and welcome to today's video. 10 superstars that Bray Wyatt could attack if he returns to WWE. I want to say a big thank you first to everyone that watched yesterday's video. That was 10 superstars that could return now that Triple H is head of creative. Feedback for that was so positive. It was so great that I knew I wanted to do another video for today. So I'm going to give a big shout out to someone that I've seen on the channel a few times actually. So shout out to them. This is Austin316. Austin, who, as I said, I've seen in the chat a few times. He has sent this over. He said, I like the idea that someone said in the chat about wrestlers Bray could face if he came back to WWE. Roman, Orton, Alexa always come to mind. I don't know how much Alexa works now. Well, funny you should say that because she was literally on the show the other day, so she works quite often. I guess it depends on the gimmick he returns with. I wanted a Bray versus Drew feud before his release. So a big shout out to Austin. Really appreciate it, bud. So we are going to tackle that today. So in order to do that, we've got to go right the way back. We're going all the way back to NXT Season 2. Husky Harris, as he was known then, he did not have the best of times. He finished 4th, which doesn't sound too bad, but I'm telling you, he was clearly the biggest star. I mean, a lot of the other names on that show go absolutely nowhere. You know, some of the other names you might recognize, Caval, you might recognize Curtis Axel. But really, it's, you know, no one gets to the level that Bray Wyatt would achieve. So for me, he should have won that series. And to be honest, he was never in contention. He never looked like winning the series. He finishes 4th. And he's lucky to finish 4th. You can see his record on screen. And his record is not brilliant. So we've got to look at the person that was mentoring him. We've got to look at the person that was, you know, his pro. The way it worked, all the rookies had a pro. And the pro was meant to guide them and bring the best out of them. And I think we can all agree that Husky's pro did not achieve that. And so I think that would be a good place to start. So the question is, who was his pro? Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was his pro. So Cody Rhodes was given the responsibility of getting the best out of Bray. And he did not do it. He failed spectacularly. I mean, if you think that Bray would go on to be a multiple-time Universal Champion, a WWE Champion, that is something the other competitors do not achieve. And Cody got nowhere near reaching or tapping into that potential. And as we said, he would finish 4th. Husky Harris would finish 4th in the 2nd season of NXT. So I think Cody is a good shout for that reason. There's the way that NXT worked. The way that you got voted off, I believe it was a mixture of votes from the fans, but also from the other professionals. So Cody was one of the professionals, but all the other rookies, they had mentors as well. And so I think we could look at a couple of those other professionals, those other mentors that clearly voted Husky off of the show. And there's a couple that are still with the company that if he wanted to, he could go after them. And I think it would make a really fun story as well. So, who are they? Kofi Kingston, MVP. Kofi Kingston and MVP, they had their own rookies. And it was their job each week, along with the other pros, to cast their votes. And so they were partially responsible for Husky Harris being voted off NXT. Now, what I really like about this is I love the idea that the Fiend could come back, Bray could come back, he could go after Kofi, and when asked as to why are you going after Kofi, he can say, I never forgot NXT Season 2. And straight away then people will go into the history trying to figure out what it is. Well, what it is that Kofi was one of the pros. He will have voted, and seemingly he voted for Husky to be eliminated. As we said, another pro would be MVP. I love the idea of him freaking out, hearing that the Fiend is back. He's gone after Kofi, and now he might be coming after him. So I really like that. That might set up then Omos against the Fiend. And as much as that might not sound like the most thrilling of matches, that is a massive monster and a massive giant for the Fiend to have to try and take down. Like, that could be fun. If you think about Undertaker, when he was kind of first on the scene, he was having to take down those kinds of giants. We saw him in the early days, just a few years after he'd debuted, taking on the likes of Giant Gonzalez. Now, I know that's not a feud that is kind of really proud of or one he looks back on fondly, but as a young wrestling fan at the time, I absolutely loved it. I loved it. So I could see that doing the same for the young fans now in a way. Omos against Fiend, the reason being because of MVP and because Bray and the Fiend want to get revenge on what happened to Husky Harris all of those years ago. So I think there's some really interesting feuds that you could build there. And of course, if he goes after the New Day, then he's going to need a partner. And that could be very interesting as well. Who would partner up with Bray? Who would partner with The Fiend? Do we bring Braun Strowman back and do Braun and Bray against the New Day? Something along those lines. Or maybe we bring Rowan back. You could do something along those lines. So lots of options, lots of things to think about there. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on to our next one. And this is really obvious. I thought we'd get this out the way early. It's Randy Orton. You've got to revisit this. So WrestleMania 37, he loses to Randy Orton. The next night on Raw, he cuts the final Firefly Funhouse where he said it feels like a restart, a reset, new friends, a rebirth, and we never see him again. So this is his last match. This is a loss that he goes out on. And not only that, I mean, you can go down a whole long list of things Randy Orton has done. So Randy Orton set him on fire, right? Burnt him alive. Not only that, he beat him at WrestleMania 33, ending his first championship run when he was WWE champion. That ended, I think it's like 40 days later at the hands of Randy Orton at WrestleMania 33. Not only that, Randy Orton was partially responsible, I'd say massively responsible, for splitting up the Wyatt family. He joined the Wyatt family and then kind of tore it apart from the inside. Not only that, he burnt down the compound, of course, that had the spirit of Sister Abigail, had the grave there, I believe, of Sister Abigail. And obviously we saw the painting in the funhouse of that moment. Randy burning down the home, the cabin. So it's a long history. I would say that Randy Orton is the biggest kind of opponent, the biggest rival that Bray and The Fiend ever had. So it would be strange to not revisit that. I feel like Bray and The Fiend, they need closure on that one. So we have to revisit it. Next up, we've got Alexa Bliss. Again, obvious, and I'm afraid a lot of these are going to be obvious. The reason why they're going to be obvious is because a lot of the less obvious opponents have actually left. So, he could go after Bo Dallas, for example, or Curtis Axel when they were the B team. They actually beat the Deleter of Worlds. And then, of course, that tag team of Bray and Matt Hardy would separate. Out of it did come the Funhouse. But because of that loss, he did go away for a long, long time. So if they were still around, he could go after them. And there's quite a few examples of things like that. But sadly, a lot of those superstars are just not around anymore. So Alexa Bliss is. And I understand what Austin316 said earlier. He was saying that, how do you do this feud? I think what you do, I think you bring a woman in. I think Bray and The Fiend comes back with a woman, and I think he sets the woman on Alexa. I don't know if you go back into the supernatural stuff. That's not something I personally would be looking for, but I do think you cannot ignore this. Like, I don't think that this is something that cannot be closed. Like, even though she's moved on with her gimmick, and she's not really doing this stuff anymore, there's no Alexa's Playground anymore, she doesn't really display any supernatural powers anymore, she still betrayed him. And I think it's only right that he gets some form of revenge. And also, I just think it'd be a great feud. Alexa against whoever is going to work with Bray, work with The Fiend. I think that could be really fun. Really, really fun. And obviously, Alexa could then go and get someone, and we could end up getting some mixed tag matches. So that would be really fun as well. So, yeah, I don't think we can ignore this one. Even though things have seemingly moved on, I think we need to revisit it. Another one that we need to revisit, honestly, cover your eyes. For many of you, this is going to hurt. It's Goldberg. It's Goldberg. We need to revisit it. This might be the biggest loss The Fiend ever suffers. I think that the one against Randy at WrestleMania, you can kind of explain it because of Alexa. And, you know, the one against Randy at WrestleMania 33 definitely hurt. Definitely hurt. I would say that was up there as well. But I think he'd been very stop-start at that point, Bray. You know, he'd never really been pushed at the very top. He just finally got there, and then, you know, he loses at WrestleMania. I think with this one, The Fiend, to my knowledge, had never been beaten, pinned, if you will. I think he had been defeated, but I don't know that he'd been pinned. This was just a straight-up defeat. This was clean. There was nothing to this. I didn't see this coming. I remember doing the watch-along for it. I remember people saying, do you think Goldberg's got a chance? I was like, no way. No way. We're so close to WrestleMania at this point. Why would you put the belt on Goldberg? Like, surely you have The Fiend go in as champion to WrestleMania. So, I did not expect this. Did not call it. Did not see it happening. Did not see it coming. And it's, I mean, like, shock is just not the word. I mean, I would say a lot of people look at this as one of the worst booking decisions ever. I think a lot of people would look at this as one of the one match that, or at least one of the matches that really did not go the way it should have gone. He went in as champion. He left, obviously, without the title. He did move on to an interesting feud with John Cena, but this is not what people wanted. This is not what people expected. And actually, Goldberg has come out recently saying, what did you want me to do? I turned up ready to lose, and then I got told I was going to be winning. So what am I meant to do? So I don't know how much we can blame Goldberg. I don't know how much that is true. But he certainly is denying that he had the match changed. But there's no way that we can't revisit this. I don't believe Goldberg's finished. I think he potentially has got one more in him. I think he would come back for the right money. And if Bray came back, I think this is one people would like to see avenged. So, Goldberg on the list. Next up, now, this is a strange one. I was really trying to figure out, how do I get Vince on this list? How do I get Vince on this list? Because the one person that really has caused the most damage to Bray and The Fiend is Vince McMahon. He never fully backed Bray. He never backed Bray when he was Bray Wyatt and had the Wyatt family. There's so much more they could have done. I think he backed him a lot more when he was The Fiend. A lot more. But even so, as we just saw with that loss against Goldberg, even that wasn't perfect. So I feel like we need to get to Vince. Now, the problem that we've got is that you can't have a match against Vince. And Vince has now retired. And there's a lot of controversy. So what are you going to do? The way that I've gone and approached it is I think he goes after Theory. And I think he only needs to say a line. And I think it's like something along the lines of, your daddy hurt me. Your daddy hurt me more than you'll ever know. And more than I can ever hurt you. but that is not gonna stop me from trying. Or something along those lines. And that's really the only reference that ever needs to be made. And we've already heard Roman use that daddy line before to Theory, saying your daddy is not here now. So we know that they're willing to go that far. And I feel like that would be a great way of the Fiend and Bray going after what he perceives to be someone really close and really important to Vince McMahon. And even though Vince isn't around anymore and we're not going to see that relationship, I think we've seen enough of that relationship to know that this is the guy that Vince wants to succeed. So what better person for the Fiend, for Bray to go after, than the guy that probably represents Vince the most now when it comes to in-ring. I would say that you could go after Triple H, but you can't really do much there. Not with his health. You can't really go after Steph. I don't think she's going to be doing much anymore. I don't think you can go after Nick Khan. So for me, Theory makes the most sense. And again, that's how I would do it. Just literally little promo, something along those lines. It gets the message out there. You don't need to name Vince. And I think that could be a really interesting program as well. Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, taking on Theory. And I'd love to see Theory getting all concerned. Like, really worried that the Fiend's after him now and what it's going to mean and what's he going to do. And that could be really cool. Next up, we got the Usos. Now, this one might be a bit strange, but hear me out. Back in 2014, early 2014, there was an iconic match involving Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt. And as soon as I show you this next image, if you haven't clicked and remembered what it is yet, you will. It's that. It's the cage match. The cage match from Raw in early 2014. It was Bray and Daniel Bryan against the Usos. The Usos win. And as a result of that victory, Daniel Bryan turns on Bray. And we get that moment. Daniel on top of the cage, yesing away. And the crowd yesing with him. Of course, Daniel would go on to WrestleMania where he would get his moment. At WrestleMania 30, Yeselmania. Bray would go on to WrestleMania to face John Cena, and obviously we know how that goes. But I think you could point to this as being quite an important moment because Bray had Daniel Bryan under his control. He had Harper, he had Rowan, things were going all right, and then because of this loss, Daniel Bryan turns on Bray. And this kind of, tears the Wyatt family apart at this point. And this was one of the earliest setbacks they had. I mean, they only arrived in 2013. And it's kind of around SummerSlam time that they arrived. By the time we're getting to this is like early January 2014. Like, this is a big setback for Bray. So I think you could point to the Usos as and point to this moment because it is big. It is iconic. As being a really important moment. The only problem you're going to have is that WWE are not going to want to focus on Daniel Bryan, and to not mention Daniel Bryan is going to be a very difficult thing to do. I mean, I suppose you can talk about the match, reference the match, more importantly, reference the fact it broke his family apart, and then if people want to look deeper into it, they can go onto the network. So maybe you keep it quite loose, you don't really show the footage, you don't really go too far into it, but the references are made. And just the references to that match in a cage that broke my family apart, that'll do it. The one thing that Bray fans love and Fiend fans love is digging into things. So they'll find it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to spoon feed them everything. So you can just say that and they'll figure it out for themselves. So I think that would be something that would allow him to go after the Usos. Obviously, if he goes after the Usos, makes sense that he goes after the big dog. What I'm saying is he can absolutely feud with the Bloodline and Roman in particular. Roman's current title reign, the universal historic title reign, started when he won that title from Bray Wyatt. I mean, that alone is a big enough reason. And did you know that at the end of August, it will have been 2 years that Roman has been champion? He won it, I think it was like August 30th, 2020. How incredible is that? So Roman ended Bray's second Universal title reign. Goldberg ended the first. Roman ended the second. That alone is enough. But add in the fact they feuded in 2015 and Roman won that feud, kind of adds a little bit more weight to things as well. When Bray lost his title in 2017 against Randy, he got drafted to Raw and he got a title opportunity. I think it was like Extreme Rules. I think it was Extreme Rules 2017. And if he'd have won that, he would have got another title opportunity. The person that stops him is Roman Reigns. So Roman not only feuds with Bray and wins that feud, he then stops him getting a title opportunity in 2017 and then takes the belt off him in 2020. More than enough for a feud. More than enough. Add in the fact the Usos as well with that iconic cage match defeated Bray and Daniel Bryan. Plenty for Bray to get his teeth stuck into. The final one then, believe it or not, is one that I always mention on watch-alongs, but it might be a surprise if you've never seen those moments or been on the watch-alongs. It's Chad Gable. Chad Gable. I know it's a bit weird, and I know people might be like, that's not very exciting. I think it could be, though, because Chad Gable, the reason why you can see here, this was at the very end of 2016, December 27th, 2016. I believe that the Wyatts of Harper and Orton, who was in the Wyatt family at the time, I believe they were the tag champs. They lose the titles to American Alpha. American Alpha win the belts. Now, there'd been a bit of problems between Orton and Harper, but following this loss, following the belts leaving, that was it. It all breaks apart. This is at the very end of December. In January, Harper and Orton face each other. And when Harper loses that match, Bray gets in the ring, Sister Abigail's him, and that really is it for the Wyatt family. So you could say that this loss is a pivotal loss. It really does kind of cement, if you will, the division. And there's no way back after this. So I think that, again, this would allow Bray, the Fiend, to go up to Chad Gable and say, you destroyed my family. Say the date of December 27th, 2016. People would find this and what this led to. And again, that would be really juicy. I do like the idea of Otis going up against the Fiend. I think that could be fun. Even if you do a tag match, Chad Gable and Otis against Bray and someone else. But I like the idea of Bray really tormenting Chad Gable. Chad Gable's not someone that gets that type of a feud. And I would be down for seeing it. And again, I think Bray fans would be into it because it's got a nice history to it. It makes sense. And that's something that they really appreciate, is that attention to detail. Rather than just a random opponent, there's a reason for it. So that will always play well with the Bray fans. So, yeah, that would be a good one. Chad Gable. And that's it, guys. I believe that's 10. As I said, a lot of those might have been super obvious, and sadly a lot of the more juicy opponents have kind of gone. So you're just kind of left with a few of the obvious ones, but make no mistake about it, there's some pretty exciting ones there. He could come back and feud with Alexa, Orton, Bloodline, the Usos. Yeah, there's so much. Goldberg. So much for him to get his teeth stuck into. I really like the Theory one. I think that one maybe excites me the most. It's a bit out there, but I really like it. But let me know your thoughts, and let me know what future videos like this you would like us to do. Yeah, we're going to look to do more of these, as long as you enjoyed them. So if you did, hit the like, and let me know down in the comments below. Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.